Living in a seasonal tourist town, life is a little different. Here's some ways that life in a town like Branson or Pigeon Forge or the Wisconsin Dells or places like that doesn't work the same way that it does in other places. One of the things that we found when we moved to the Branson area was that the cycle of life, the way that you live in your community, is very different than it is in other places. You see it some in Orlando because it's a huge tourist town, but in particular in a seasonal tourist area, things are very different in some ways than other places you might live. Branson is going to be very similar to Pigeon Forge and to the Wisconsin Dells in particular, but there's other places that are similar. As soon as you drive into town, you have what we here in Branson call the Strip. It's basically your kind of main road through town, and there's all the tourist stuff there. And if you're used to a regular town, it's kind of insane. I drive in Orlando International Drive, but everybody there calls it I Drive. You've got all the tourist stuff, the little amusement parks, the rides, the museums like Ripley's and the aquariums and the Titanic and the Wax Museum. And you've got all of these things right along the main road through town. And it's almost overwhelming to the senses. Here in Branson, we've also got a ton of theaters. There's some of those in Pigeon Forge as well. And so you're walking through and it's almost like this mini, how did I hear it described one time? The one character on The Simpsons, if he were to design Las Vegas, that's Branson. And I forget what his name is. Somebody will tell me in the comments. I know. But it's a hillbilly Las Vegas. And I don't like to use the word hillbilly, but it gives you the right idea. It's just different. And so you've got all these attractions and everything in town. And then you realize rather quickly that the local residents in town don't drive on that main strip. The traffic is horrible. It's usually backed up. And so you learn very quickly to avoid that road and most of the other associated roads. So if you need to go on to something up there, you learn all the back roads and the side routes. And here in Branson, they've got 3 of them actually color-coded, 4 of them. The yellow, the red, the blue, and the green. So you can kind of avoid it some, but the locals, we don't go anywhere near Highway 76 in Branson if we can avoid it, because it's ugly. People, when you're surrounded by tourists, people forget how to drive. And I know this is true in a lot of other places, but much more so. Blinkers, stopping. You will see people that will stop in the middle of the road when there's 2-lane roads. They will stop in the left lane, dead stop, and then turn across 2 or 3 lanes of traffic. I have seen them on the freeway coming in and be in the left lane and 3 lanes of traffic just cut over. And you're just like, oh my goodness. You'd see it in Orlando and it was usually rental cars, and you're going, Brit or somebody else from outside. You could see the bad driving, and it's just scary sometimes. Yes, there's bad drivers everywhere, but you go into a tourist town and it's even worse. And especially with Branson, we get a lot of tourists from Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas, which are flat. And then in Branson, we've got hills and curves, and now they try to call them mountains. They're not mountains. They're good-sized foothills. But it throws people off, and they're like, oh my goodness, how do I drive this? We have some 45-mile-an-hour curves on the way to our house, and there's people constantly doing 20 miles an hour. And you're kind of sitting there as you're driving going,
hey, Mom, there's a curve in the road. What do I do now?
Yes, I do tend to jokingly make fun sometimes of the way people drive, including myself. I do mock my own driving.
Hey, come on, Speed Racer, let's go.
Don't. I'm not serious when I do it, okay? Just so you know. Yeah, the driving is very interesting. And like I said, the locals know which roads to avoid and which ones to go on. And they also know when to use those roads, which I'll come back to. See, what's interesting is you can spot the locals versus the visitors pretty easy based on where they are. The locals know the places to avoid, and if it's a tourist spot, you're probably not going to find the locals there. So there's a couple restaurants in town that everybody loves to go to. You won't find the locals eating at them. We go to other places. Shopping. We don't go to the main tourist areas. There's 2 Walmarts in town. There is one on Highway 76, the main drag, and then there's another one that is just north of town a little bit, an area called Bee Creek. The locals all go to Bee Creek for the Walmart, the Aldi, the Target, Home Depot. That is the local shopping area. It's where we go. We don't go anywhere near to the one on the Strip. The grocery store on the Strip? Nope, not going there. Too expensive and too many tourists. And yeah, they do raise the prices for the tourists. So you're not going to find the locals in those areas. If you really want to know the nice places to eat, the nice places to shop, ask the locals, because we go other places. It is cheaper. We know where the cheap gas is in town, and it's not anywhere you're going to find the tourists. And no, gas is not that cheap. It's a few cents cheaper. But the crowds and the population is another area that you see huge differences. The population of Branson ebbs and flows with the holidays and breaks. So spring breaks, summer, holidays, you will have over 100,000 people in town. And I've heard that it can push 150,000 people at a given point. During the 2 weeks around Christmas and New Year's, that is peak tourist season. It's the busiest time of the year. If you're working in town, you're putting in hours. I put in around 100 hours or so in 2 weeks, because that's when everybody is here and that's when you make your money. So that's when you work. You'll see a little bit lighter crowds during other parts of the spring and fall, although we're still pretty busy. But like I said, spring breaks, summer vacation, anytime the schools are out, lots of people in town, to the point where we actually have a good idea of when spring breaks are in Kansas, in Oklahoma, in Arkansas, in Texas, because it helps people gauge when they're going to be busy and when they're not. So we actually do try to keep track of it if you're working in any sort of business that caters to tourists. It helps you know what to prepare for. Silver Dollar City, we always knew what state was on vacation with their schools at any given point. And then you get to those other times. So like November, a lot of November's quieter. There's still people here. March is relatively quiet. But then you hit January 3rd or 4th to mid-March, and the town's empty. Or at least it feels like it. We go from 100 and 150,000 people to just under 13,000. That's the actual real population of Branson, is 12,880 something. Quite a bit different than most of the year. So January, February, March, that's when you will see the locals actually driving up and down the Strip, because there's nobody else here. You'll see us go to some of these tourist things that if they're open, but a lot of it's not even open. There's hotels that close, there's restaurants that close, there are attractions that close. There's several that, if they've had a rough year, that you'll see in January. That's when they all go out of business and post the for sale signs. The entertainment acts all rotate around in springtime, and so there's a lot of, who's going to be playing where, and what are they going to be doing, and who are they with, and which theater. But it's just a quiet time. And it's interesting in that if you're working in a tourist industry in town, which is what most of it is, you can count on January, February, part of March to either be out of work or to have your hours cut way back. I'm at a job right now where we go from working 30 to 50 hours during the busy times, usually 30, busy, Christmas time, 50-ish. And then we hit the first week of January, and our business is now closed 3 days a week, and I'll be working about 15 hours a week. But I'm working. There's a lot of people out there who don't work during this time because their business closes entirely. So you have to budget and save for that time. It definitely makes it very interesting in that. And to be driving around the town and see nothing. You go from the super busy, bustling, lots of restaurants and hotels and shows and everything, to all of a sudden in January, it's dead. And my job, you could see it. New Year's Day, we were packed full. We were scheduled full up until about 6 o'clock. And then it literally just died and there was nothing because everybody that was in town went home. And the next day, we did have some business the next day. There's a few people hanging around. But all of a sudden, the traffic is gone, and it just dies January 1st and 2nd. And we go from packed town to nothing. So it's different. It's like, it's quiet. You can catch a break. You get a breather. I've kind of told people I'm looking forward to this next 2 months. My budget is not looking forward to it, but I can finally get caught up on all of this stuff that's been stacking up, and I got stacks of papers I got to sort through and receipts and all sorts of things. And now is when we can breathe and do it. Yeah, a little different than most other places that go year round. Disney never slowed down or stopped, but it definitely does here. And so we get to look forward to winter. Most of us. There's some that, again, struggle. But it's a time to rest, catch up, get those home projects done, and let your body recover from a very busy year. So that's life in a seasonal tourist town. Love to know, is there something there that was unexpected to you? I would love to hear it. Please share it in the comments. Let me know if you live in an area and I missed something. I'd love to hear that too. But love to hear from you as well. Thank you so incredibly much to my patrons, my supporters. I couldn't do this without them. I'd also like to give a huge shout out to Brian Campbell for signing on as a new patron, and to Hydro Phoenix for coming back. Welcome aboard. They get to enjoy some behind the scenes stuff and conference calls and all sorts of other things. If you'd like to know more about all that, please check the description below. Thank you so incredibly much for your support, for watching. May God bless. This is Life in a Tourist Town. Okay. I definitely have to see if I can do that. If you look at the crowds, oh my goodness. Itchy. During Christmas holidays, that again, the 2 weeks are on Christmas and New Year's, it's packed. This is head tourist season. Head tourist season? Yeah, we're taking off the tourist heads. Ha! I'm at a job right now where we go from amateur squeak. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions, your ideas. Be sure to share them in the comments below, or you can contact me. There's information in the description that has my email address, fan pages, information about merchandise, and so much more. So be sure to check that out. Don't forget to hit that like button, share the video, and if you haven't already, hit the button right up there to subscribe. And in fact, if you did enjoy this, I've even got another video for you right here. And also about these wonderful people here, those are my YouTube members and my patrons, the ones whose financial support makes this possible. I couldn't do it without them. If you want to know more about that and the perks that come with it, well, be sure to check the description. There's a link right down there. Thank you so incredibly much. God bless.